It's been a day of high tension in the Middle East. After Tehran upped the ante with an early morning strike in Iraq, firing a series of ballistic missiles at two air bases where U.S. forces are living. It's unclear if there have been any casualties from the attack, which came hours after Soleimani was buried. U.S. President Donald Trump tweeted soon after that all is well, and that Washington is assessing the casualties and damage. He's set to make a statement sometime soon. Iraq says there are no reports of its security forces being hurt. It is Iran's most direct confrontation with the U.S. in over 4 decades, and the crisis has rattled the global community. Many airlines have taken action to keep their flights out of the region, while oil prices have struck a 4-month high. Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has called the strike a slap on the face for Washington. He says it is important to end America's so-called corrupting presence in the region. At least one country has taken action to get its people out of the region. The Philippines has issued its highest-level alert and urged the immediate repatriation of its citizens in Iraq. Cargo planes and a ship have been dispatched to help evacuate around 1,600 Filipino migrant workers in the country.
This issue of casualties is going to be absolutely key because if indeed there have been American casualties, and again there's no word of that at all, but if there have been, it will become much more likely that President Trump finds himself in a situation where he will decide to respond militarily than if there have not been American casualties. Social media channels, Twitter particularly, is being used by the Iranian and the American side in a bid to damp down some of the rhetoric rather than kick it up a notch. So you had the Iranian foreign minister taking to Twitter last night insisting that Iran's military action had concluded. He described it as proportionate, and President Trump, for his part, putting out that Twitter statement that began with the words, "All is well." Very uncharacteristic for both sides to be using social media to try and lessen the temperature and lower the rhetoric. And some here in Washington think that's an indication that, provided there are no substantial American casualties on the ground in Iraq, this gives President Trump an opening to de-escalate rather than escalate the crisis.
Well, shortly after the attack, U.S. aviation authorities banned all U.S. registered carriers from flying over Iraq, Iran, and the Gulf. And amidst the tense situation, a growing number of airlines have begun diverting flights from the region, including many Asian carriers. Singapore Airlines says it is diverting flights from Iranian airspace. So too are Malaysia Airlines and Taiwan's EVA Air. Air India says its flights will be rerouted temporarily to avoid Iran. Even airlines whose routes do not pass over Iran and Iraq are taking measures. Vietnam Airlines says it will adjust routes to avoid areas of potential instability. A Ukrainian airliner has crashed in Tehran, killing all 176 people on board. Ukraine International Airlines flight PS752 crashed not long after taking off from the Iranian capital for Kiev. Ukraine has released a breakdown of the death toll, and over 80 were Iranian, while 63 were Canadian. 11 were Ukrainian, 10 Swedish, while the rest were from Afghanistan, Germany, and Britain. Now, the crash came hours after Iran launched a ballistic missile attack against U.S.-led forces in Iraq. But authorities don't think there's a link. They've ruled out terrorism for now and are looking at a mechanical issue as the possible cause. The Boeing 737-800 took off from the Imam Khomeini Airport just after 5 a.m. local time, heading for Kiev, Ukraine. But it did not make it far. Within minutes, it burst into flames and crashed down in farmland just outside Tehran.
رشته ساعت 6 بود. صدای انفجار ما شنیدیم. من خودم شخصا داشتم میرفتم سر کار 6 و 10 دقیقه من خودم رسوندم اینجا. زمانی که اومدم اصلا هواپیما تیکه تیکه شده بود. جسده کلا تیکه تیکه شده بود. تنها کاری که خلبان کرده اینور زمین چمن زمین فوتبال است، اینور مسکونی هستن. هواپیما رو به سمت بیابونی، سمت کانال هدایت کرده.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has cut short a holiday to Oman to deal with the disaster. So far, authorities have pointed to engine failure as a possible cause. The pilot is not believed to have sent an emergency signal. It's the first fatal crash for Ukraine International Airlines. The plane in question was new, according to some reports, just 3 years old. Boeing says it's aware of the crash and is gathering more information. The 737-800 is one of the world's most flown models with a good safety record. It does not have the software feature implicated in crashes of the 737 MAX, which remains grounded globally.